Welcome back. So this was the season that it happened. The Pittsburgh Penguins missed the Stanley Cup playoffs. First time we have seen Pittsburgh miss the Stanley Cup playoffs in a very long time. So they end up finishing the season 40, 31, and 11, 91 points. And again, outside the playoff picture, it feels weird not to have them in the playoffs, doesn't it? So their playoff streak began in 2007. They lost in the first round against Ottawa in 5 games. 2008, they went all the way to the Stanley Cup final. There they lost to Detroit in 7, and in 2009, the rematch with Detroit took place, and they won that series. So the first Stanley Cups in 2009. 2010, they lost in the second round against Montreal in 7. 2011, they lose in the first round against Tampa Bay, again in 7. 2012, they lost in the first round against Philadelphia in 6. So we come out of this Stanley Cup, and they've gone through 3 years of being out of the playoffs relatively early, and there was a lot of discussion about what needed to change. 2013, they get all the way to the conference final. They get swept by Boston there. That was the year they brought in Jarome Iginla. 2014, they lost in the second round against the Rangers in 7. 2015, they lost in the first round against the Rangers in 5. So those are 6 years in a row that were disappointing net results for Pittsburgh because no Stanley Cup final appearance. But 2016 and 2017, they won the Stanley Cup both years. 2018, they lost in the second round against Washington in 6. They haven't won a round since. 2019, they lost in the first round against the Islanders. That was a sweep. 2020, they lost in the qualifying round against Montreal in 4. That was 3-1. 2021, they lost in 6 games against the New York Islanders, again in the first round. And 2022, in the first round, they lost in 7 against the Rangers. And there were controversies along the way. There were things that if they, had fallen a little different, maybe they would have got through, maybe they would have gone somewhere. But the end result is still in 4 straight series coming into this year, they had lost. So Sidney Crosby continues to be remarkably consistent, which should be a surprise to no one. 55 games played in 2020-2021, 24 goals, 38 assists, 62 points. Last year he played 69 games, 31 goals, 53 assists, 84 points. This year in 82 games, 33 goals, 60 assists, 93 points. Evgeny Malkin played all 82 games this year. That almost never happens. 33 games played in 2020-2021, 8 goals, 20 assists there. Last year in 41 games, he had 20 goals, 22 assists, 42 points. And this year, every game he appeared in, 82 games, 27 goals, 56 assists, 83 points. So Malkin and Crosby both stay above a point per game, but they missed the playoffs. Gensel, 56 games played for him in 2020-2021, 23 goals, 34 assists there for 57 points. Last year in 76 games, he had 40 goals, 44 assists for 84 points. And this year in 78 games, 36 goals, 37 assists, 73 points. Pretty consistent totals from Gensel. He's off a bit. But unlike the first two teams I've looked at, Calgary and Nashville, this is not a case of teams having, players having career years and falling off. It wasn't in the cards for them this year. Chris Letang, 2020-2021, 55 games, 7 goals, 38 assists, 45 points. Last year, he had a fantastic season, 78 games, 10 goals, 58 assists, 68 points. This year, he plays 64 games, 12 goals, 29 assists, 41 points. So the goal scoring went up. The points production, if you're looking at points per game, dropped. But Letang is there, Malkin's there, and Crosby's there, and they're all signed for a while. Tristan Jarry is a free agent this summer. It will be interesting to see what Pittsburgh does. Do you bring him back? How much is he worth? He had a 25-9-3 record in 2020-2021, 909 save percentage there. The following season, he was 34-18-6, 919 save percentage in this year, 24-13-7, and back down to the 909 save percentage. So the overall picture is one of, it's not like Pittsburgh players had terrible years. It just, they missed the playoffs here. Their UFA list this summer, Zucker, Heinen, Archibald, Dumoulin, Kulikov, Jarry, and Bonino. So they need a starting goaltender if Jarry leaves. They are going to need to replace Dumoulin on the blue line if he leaves, and they're going to need more wingers if, in fact, Zucker and Heinen leave. Now, my guess is some of those guys will end up coming back, but there will be some change. Restricted free agents, Paling, Nylander. Nylander had a decent few games at the end of the season there. O'Connor and Ty Smith. And that's a name that we're going to talk about again when we get to this part of the board over here. No looking ahead, no cheating. So when we look at the contracts and when they expire, and that it feels like that's important because it might give you an idea for how long they're going to be expected to continue to try. So even though they've missed the playoffs, this is not going to be a rebuild or a retool, I don't think, because Crosby, Malkin, Letang, they're not getting younger, and you want to, strike while the iron's hot. I think some of that thinking is how we got to a team that's outside the playoffs. But Crosby signed through 2025, Malkin 2026, Letang 2028, Petrie 2025, Gensel 2024, so he's up next year. Rust and Raquel both signed through 2028. So a lot of these players are signed for a while. And this is a team that if they decide to make some major changes, I do wonder if it's going to be with their eyes on returning to the playoffs and getting back into contention. I don't know if this is going to happen. And I mean, I'm thinking through historically, it would be unusual for a team to fall out of the playoffs and then become a contender again with that same core. But we will see if that is, in fact, what's in their future soon enough. So when we look at some questionable decisions, and there have been some questionable decisions with Pittsburgh this past couple of years. The 2023 second-round pick that they traded for Michael Granlund didn't really work out that well. Granlund, it just didn't click in Pittsburgh. And, his contract's not up this year either, so there's term with that. Whoever comes in and takes over as GM, they got some work to do. Just put it that way. Marino being traded for Ty Smith and a 2023 third-round pick. We don't know who that 2023 third's going to be as of yet, but, losing John Marino definitely looks like that was a major mistake. Marino goes to New Jersey, had a very good season with New Jersey, is part of the reason why New Jersey's where they're at right now with home ice advantage in the first round of the playoffs, while Pittsburgh not in the playoffs at all. They also waived Kapanen. Waiving Kapanen, I think, was a mistake. So in 43 games at Pittsburgh, 7 goals, 13 assists, 20 points. And I understand he wasn't producing. But then he goes to St. Louis, and in 23 games, 8 goals, 6 assists, 14 points. I don't think he wasn't being deployed correctly, or there was something from a coaching perspective that wasn't working. But, Kapanen playing, maybe he had a bit of a chip on his shoulder when he got to St. Louis as well. But it definitely did not go well for them, and St. Louis jumped on him. And also, I think they missed Evan Rodriguez, who went to Colorado this year. I think they missed that Swiss Army knife player that he was. And again, I understand that his scoring dropped off in the second half last year, but he was a really good player early in the season, and I think they could have used him. And again, the interesting thing to me is the fact that Crosby and Malkin both healthy this year, and they missed the playoffs. And it's one of those things we talk about a lot. Like, oh man, if they had Crosby and Malkin all year, they'd be pretty hard to stop, and they're outside the playoffs. So if we look at how their season unfolded, they were 4-4-2 through their first 10. They went 6-3-1 in their next 10, 8-1-1 in their next 10. So after 30 games, they were 18-8-4. Looked like a shoe-in to be in the playoffs. Really strong play from top to bottom of the lineup. Then they went 3-5-2 from games 30 through 40, 4-3-3 over their next 10, 5-5 over their next 10, 4-5-1 over the games through 60, or from 60 through 70, and then to finish out the season from 71 through 82, they went 6-5-1. They just couldn't get hot at the right time. This was a very hot and cold team, but you can see after that 30-game mark where they were 18-8-4, they were one game below 500, below NHL 500 the rest of the way, and it's just not going to get you into the playoffs. So they need to figure out a way to make this not happen again. Get off to that good start. Good start. 4-4-2 is not a great start, but at any rate, they were 18-8-4 through 30 games. Figure out a way to maintain that and build on it. But again, I feel like there's young stars that are needed, that this team doesn't quite have the youthful energy that the Pittsburgh Penguins desperately need. I think that that's something that should be looked upon by whoever takes over as GM as being the priority. They need young players in this lineup. They need a team that is just better. And I do wonder if the fact that this is an aging team is part of the reason why they're sitting out and they're watching the playoffs rather than being part of the playoffs. But again, when you've got a league where half of it misses the playoffs, where 16 out of 32 makes the playoffs, we're going to see some good teams miss. And with Calgary, Nashville, and Pittsburgh being the first three teams I'm talking about in this series, because they're the highest rated teams that miss the playoffs, you're going to have good teams that don't make it. And I think that's for the benefit of the league. I remember when 16 out of 21 teams made it, and if you didn't make the playoffs, that was a complete embarrassment. But now it feels like we're in a league where, yeah, there's some good teams that miss, and I'm okay with that. I don't want to see a play-in round where a team that misses the playoffs has a chance to jump over a team that made it. So I'm not in favor of that idea. And so for Pittsburgh, I think getting back into the top 8 in the East, I think they can do it, but it has to be the right decisions that get made from here. And it'll be interesting to see if Malkin and Crosby can stay healthy for 2 seasons in a row. I didn't see that coming. I really didn't. I thought, yeah, well, Malkin misses about half the games usually, so he'll probably miss about half again. Nope, didn't miss a game, and yet they missed the playoffs. So let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. How would you fix the Pittsburgh Penguins? Or do you think they'll resolve themselves next season because they still have a decent team? Where do you spend that almost $21 million in cap space they have this summer? Remembering they have to get a goaltender. They're going to need wingers. They're going to probably need at least one blue liner. That $20 million is going to get eaten up pretty quickly. But let me know your thoughts in the comment section below as always. Don't forget to hit like and subscribe if you're browsing your way through. You just happened upon this video. Thank you guys so much for watching, for all your support. I will talk to you again soon.